Cole Bradford, a CEO used to commanding entire rooms, was standing alone at O'Hare with an old stuffed bear tucked under his arm and his eyes lost in the snow-streaked glass. Outside, planes slept under ice. Inside, families laughed, hugged, and ran for connections, while he looked like a man too rich to be noticed and too empty to pretend he was okay. His wealth could buy comfort, silence, distance, but it couldn't buy the one thing Christmas loves to rub in the face of anyone who's broken: the sound of somebody waiting for you. Cole had power, a name, the numbers to prove it, and still, there he was, throat tight, clutching that bear like it was the last proof that he had once loved someone for real. The thing is, he wasn't late for a flight. He was late for himself, and it was exactly on a night like that, when the world's arrogance walks right past and humility shows up where nobody expects, that a simple sentence was about to bump into him in a way he couldn't ignore. But before we dive in, I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city and your country in the comments. Always curious to see how far these stories travel. Chicago's O'Hare International Airport looked like an anthill in panic that Christmas Eve. Screens flashed delayed, like fire alarms. Kids cried from exhaustion in their parents' arms, and the metallic voice over the speakers swallowed gate numbers and times that didn't mean anything anymore. Outside, the blizzard scratched the glass in crooked streaks, covering the runway in a dirty white that made every departure feel like a broken promise. And in the middle of all that noise, Cole Bradford, CEO of a giant company used to making the world obey, couldn't even control his own next step. He sat in a quieter corner of Terminal C, near a huge window, like someone who carefully chooses his own loneliness. The dark wool coat, the expensive watch, the perfect luggage, everything about him screamed power. And yet there was one thing that made him look small, almost fragile, if anyone really paid attention. In his lap, pressed against his stomach like a shield, there was an old stuffed bear, worn at the seams with one eye a little loose. It didn't match him at all. That was exactly why it hurt. It was the memory of a daughter he had lost, and of the kind of love you can't buy, can't negotiate, can't win back in any meeting. Every minute, people walked past and glanced his way, some recognizing his face with that strange mix of curiosity and casual arrogance, as if wealth turned a person into an attraction instead of a human being. A man sat 2 seats away, whispered something to his wife, and pointed with his chin. She grabbed his arm and sped up, like sadness might be contagious. Cole pretended not to see. That he did well, he armored up. But there, with no office, no driver, no closed door, he looked trapped inside his own silence. And the cruel detail was this: the louder the airport got, the louder the emptiness inside him answered back. His phone buzzed twice with messages from his assistant. Quick fixes, 5-star hotel options. I can get you a car right now. I can rebook you on the first flight in the morning. He didn't even open them. This wasn't logistics. It was the night itself. It was Christmas coming in, and with it, that icy feeling that the world keeps going with its lights and hugs, while you stay stuck, holding a piece of the past. It's the last thing that hasn't hit the floor. And if you're new around here and like stories like this, human, honest, full of real turning points, hit subscribe and stay close, because this night was about to touch a place Cole swore he'd frozen for good. Right then, by the window, as he lowered his eyes to the bear, the soft sound of little footsteps approached, and a small presence stopped in front of him, like destiny had picked that bench on purpose. The first thing Cole noticed wasn't her voice. It was her height, A kid's coat with a hood too big, a tiny backpack bouncing on her back, and two small hands gripping the straps like that was the only way to stay standing. The girl stopped right in front of him, stared at the old bear in his lap, and then lifted her eyes to his face, unafraid. She had that kind of courage only kids have before the world teaches them to be suspicious of everything. She tilted her head, looking at him the way a child looks at an adult she doesn't understand, and asked, simple and sharp, "Are you lost too, mister?" The question hit a place in him the cold hadn't reached. He blinked slowly, like he needed to remember how to be a person in the middle of that mess of luggage, announcements, and hurry. Wealth had trained him to hear rehearsed phrases, flattery, interest dressed up as politeness, but what came from her had no theater. He looked around and saw what nobody else seemed to see. A child alone, way too small for a giant airport like this. A guy in a suit walked by as if they didn't exist. A woman on her phone almost ran straight into the girl and didn't even apologize. It was that everyday arrogance, quiet and sharp, the kind that hurts because it doesn't even know it's there. Cole leaned forward, trying to get on her level, and lowered his voice so he wouldn't scare her. "What's your name?" "Lily," she answered, squeezing the backpack strap. Her voice came out steady, but her eyes were already glossy, holding back a wave with nothing but pride. "And where's your mom, Lily?" That one sentence was enough to melt her defense. "I went to get water. When I came back, she wasn't there anymore." Cole's stomach twisted. It wasn't fear for himself. It was that old feeling that the world is way too big whenever someone you love disappears for even a second. He took a deep breath, and the same instinct for power that used to command rooms and million-dollar decisions surfaced in a different way, not to dominate anything, but to protect. "Then we're gonna find your mom," he said, simple like a promise. He held out his hand. Lily hesitated just long enough to decide whether grown-ups still deserve trust, and then took it. Her hand was warm, small, real, and as they walked through the terminal, weaving around people in a rush and screens flashing new delays, Cole felt something strange. He was starting to feel again. Near the information desk, a woman's voice cut through the noise with barely controlled panic. "Lily!" The girl squeezed his hand hard, like that grip proved she wasn't alone anymore, and whispered, "That's her." The voice sliced through the terminal noise like it had pushed through glass and snow. "Lily." It wasn't a pretty movie-style shout. It was the kind of mum call that's already crossed from fear into desperation. No permission asked. Cole saw the woman before Lily let go of his hand, hair thrown into a rushed bun, cheeks red from cold and panic, eyes sweeping faces like she was searching for air. She ran toward them, dodging suitcases and people, asking for room with her voice and her body, and almost nobody really made space. When her eyes finally landed on the little girl, it was as if the whole world paused for a split second. Lily broke away and sprinted, small and fast, backpack bouncing, straight into her arms. The hug that happened there wasn't photo-ready. It was real. The mom dropped to her knees and clutched Lily like she was trying to stitch her into her own chest. Lily buried her face in her mother's neck and cried the way only a child cries when she finally feels safe again. The woman closed her eyes and took quick, shallow breaths, repeating the same words over and over. "It's okay. Mommy's here." Cole stood a couple of steps away, the stuffed bear pinned to his arm like he was holding an old gilt. He noticed the mother's hand shaking against Lily's back. It wasn't the cold. It was late relief. And right there, in the middle of all that chaos, he felt how unfair it all was. For some people, losing someone for a minute is just a scare. For others, it rips the floor from under their feet. When the woman finally lifted her face, she noticed him. She noticed his posture first, the expensive coat, the controlled manner of a man who always seems in charge. For a moment her gaze hardened, automatic defense, pure instinct. Then she saw the worn bear in his arm, the threadbare fabric, the seams starting to split, and the hardness cracked without a sound. Cole tried to explain, but his voice came out rougher than he wanted. "She came up to me. That she was lost. I just stayed with her until we found you." The woman drew in a breath like she was still recovering from the run. "Thank you," she said, and there was nothing exaggerated in the way she said it. It was gratitude, with exhaustion, with trembling, with reality. "I'm Rachel," she added. Giving him her name was a way of putting some humanity back into the scene. Lily, still clinging to her, looked at the stuffed bear again, serious and curious, like she recognized a sadness she didn't know how to name. Rachel followed her daughter's gaze and asked gently, careful not to pry, "Is that bear yours?" Cole almost said no by reflex, the way someone protects what hurts, but the truth was already sitting there between them. "It was my daughter's," he said, a short, heavy line that didn't need details to cut deep. Rachel swallowed hard, hugged Lily even closer, and fell quiet for a second. Not the awkward kind of silence, but the kind that respects someone else's pain. The speakers announced yet another delay. Snow kept hitting the glass, and Cole realized something had shifted. For the first time that night, he didn't just look like a man with power. He looked like someone who'd been reached. The loudspeaker crackled again, and the word "delayed" dropped on everyone like a sentence. People complained, kids begged to be picked up, suitcases thudded against the floor, and that dry airport air pressed behind everyone's eyes. Cole glanced up at the board, then back at Rachel, and saw she was still coming back from the scare. Her body there, but her mind replaying the moment her daughter disappeared. Lily, on the other hand, sat in that strange calm kids fall into after a big cry. Quiet, alert, glued to her mom like she was afraid the world might snatch her again. Cole pointed toward a small coffee shop tucked off to the side. Warm yellow light, cramped tables, a corner that looked a little less harsh. "Want to sit for a bit? At least until the next announcement?" he asked. Rachel was ready to say no out of politeness. You could see the "you don't have to" sitting on her tongue. Then Lily yawned and murmured, "I'm hungry." No pride survives that inside. The terminal noise faded into a muffled hum, and that alone already felt like relief. Cole ordered hot tea for Rachel and a hot chocolate for Lily, plus something simple to eat. No show, no grand gesture. Even so, the contrast jumped out in the first second. His coat looked made for city snow. His discreetly expensive watch caught the light, and he had the quiet face of someone who'd never had to sleep in a cold house. Rachel's hands were cracked from work, her nails short, her tiredness the kind that isn't just physical. It's the exhaustion of someone who solves problems in silence. Lily hugged her paper cup in both hands and let out a tiny, happy sigh, like that drink was a victory. Cole watched that and felt something uncomfortable twist inside him. It was such a simple scene, and he realized how long it had been since he actually lived inside simple moments. For a while, the conversation stayed short, full of pauses and cautious sentences that didn't step too far. Rachel thanked him again. He answered with a small nod, like too many words might shatter something fragile in the air. But the silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of things unsaid. Rachel started to share pieces of her world slowly, testing the ground with each detail. She told him about the long shifts, waiting tables at a diner outside the city, stacking tips and hours, and how at night she tried to write children's stories, scribbling ideas on napkins, in phone notes, anywhere she could. "I want to finish a book, but life always comes crashing through," she said, and there was no self-pity in her voice, just humility mixed with stubbornness. Cole listened without interrupting, without offering easy advice, and that alone was rare, because his power usually came with hurry and certainty. Then he said it, without rehearsal, not chasing impact. "You're doing a good job. I hope somebody's told you that." Rachel froze for a second. That kind of affirmation was a language she hardly ever heard. She turned her face away, fussing with the cup just to buy time, and the air between them grew dense in a good way, the kind of dense that happens when someone accidentally lets their guard down. Lily watched them for a moment, curious, then went back to her chocolate. It was the most normal thing in the world for strangers to be kind to each other in the middle of all that. Cole squeezed the stuffed bear a little tighter, a knot forming in his throat he'd rather call tiredness. Outside, the snow kept falling and flight stayed stuck, but in that little corner, something had clearly found a bit of warmth. When Lily finished her drink and rested her head on her mother's shoulder, Cole realized that night still had one small detail in store, the kind that changes everything without making noise. The coffee shop slowly emptied out, like the whole airport was running out of energy, along with the storm outside. Lily drifted toward sleep on her mother's shoulder, fighting it the way kids do, blinking slowly, stubborn, until her body gave up. Rachel pulled her coat up like a blanket, trying to create comfort where there wasn't much to work with. Cole watched in silence, that old bear still wedged under his arm, and noticed a cruel little truth. Some people grow up surrounded by wealth and never learn how to warm their own hearts. And some, with almost nothing, turn an airport corner into home for a few minutes. When Rachel got up to grab some water, Lily slowly opened her backpack like she was on a secret mission. She pulled out a crumpled pack of cookies, cheap, nothing special, and held it out to Cole with both hands, serious, like she was offering something truly valuable. "This is for you, so you don't be sad," she said softly. Without ceremony, Cole froze. A man with power, used to contracts and numbers, had no idea what to do with such a small, honest gift. And that's when the turning point hit, not out in the airport, but inside him. He took the cookie pack carefully, as if it might break, and nodded, his voice low. "Thank you, Lily. If this part touches you, even just this tiny gesture that changes the whole atmosphere, drop a comment below and tell me what it stirred up in you, or share a moment when someone saved your day with a simple kindness." These things look small, but they stay. Cole slipped the packet into the inside pocket of his coat, the place he kept what mattered, and felt a tightness in his chest he stubbornly labeled exhaustion. Rachel came back, saw the scene, and gave a shy little smile full of humility, like she was apologizing for not having anything more impressive to offer than a good-hearted kid. And Cole, who'd seen more than enough arrogance that night, people rushing by, looking over heads, pretending none of it was their problem, realized Lily's kindness was the exact opposite of that. It was presence. Later, when the board finally started showing reopened gates and the storm began to lose strength, Rachel pulled Lily into her lap and got ready to move on. Cole pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. It could have been some glossy CEO business card, could have been anything expensive. But he chose a simple napkin and a pen. He wrote down his personal email, and underneath it in steady letters, the title of the story Rachel had described with her eyes shining. "The little girl who got lost but found everything." He handed it over like you hand someone respect, not charity. "If you write it, send it to me," he said. Rachel held the napkin a second longer than she needed to, like she was gripping a door that had just appeared at the end of a hallway. And when they said goodbye, it wasn't a happy ending. It was just that strange sense that sometimes a bad night doesn't finish the same way because two people decide not to walk past each other. After that night at the airport, life went on, but neither life went back to what it had been. Rachel went back to the diner, smile on her face and exhaustion swallowed down, serving rushed customers like she hadn't almost had the floor pulled out from under her. Lily went back to her drawings and toys, but every now and then she'd mention the man with the bear. He'd become a chapter too real to be left in the past. And Cole went back to glass-walled meetings, executive emails, and the roar of his own company. But the cookie packet in his inside coat pocket stayed right where it was, untouched, reminding him of something annoying and true. Someone had slipped past his armor without asking permission. The first email came soon after, that same week. A simple message, no frills. Rachel thanking him again and saying Lily had insisted she write the airport story. She attached a short piece, almost shy, like she didn't want to bother him. It was good, not cute, good. Real, written with humility and courage, not begging for applause. Cole read it twice, then a third time. When he replied, he didn't write like a CEO, he wrote like a man. A few honest lines, asking how Lily was, and admitting he hadn't forgotten either. The exchange turned into a routine without either of them planning it. One day it was a drawing from Lily, a bear with a crooked red bow. Another day it was Cole confessing he'd picked up the worn bear in the middle of a meeting and had to stop for a minute, like the whole world had turned down its volume. Rachel sent more pages, and each one felt like opening a window in the cold. There was loss, care, and a quiet delicacy that didn't make noise, but definitely stayed. The more Cole read, the more the reversal happened inside him. He didn't want to save Rachel. He just wanted that work to have a real shot, without arrogance, without spectacle. So he reached out to the right contact, an editor who owed favors to a lot of people, but mostly owed respect to talent. Cole sent the pages straight, no sugarcoating. Read this without asking who wrote it. If it's not good, tell me. The reply came fast. The editor wanted the full manuscript and, more importantly, wanted to meet Rachel in person because he recognized good writing, but he needed to know who was behind it. That's when things clicked. He said that if he liked the complete work, the publisher would cover her trip to Chicago for a final meeting. Business, plain and simple, not charity. Rachel froze. Her life didn't have travel out of nowhere built into the schedule. But she also knew real chances don't knock twice. She answered okay carefully and explained that yes, she could go if she traded shifts at the diner and used up the hours she'd saved. Cole didn't promise her the world, he just saved the day and the time. Because now this wasn't coincidence. It was a meeting set on the calendar. Days later, Chicago greeted Rachel the way it greets anyone who arrives already tired. Wind cutting across her face, people rushing, harsh white lights in O'Hare's endless corridors. She came with a small, noisy suitcase, the kind whose wheels announce how expensive every trip is. Lily walked pressed against her, holding onto her sleeve like airports were famous for swallowing people. Rachel tried to keep her back straight, but you could see in her eyes she was stepping into a room she'd never been invited to before. An editor's meeting, a big city, a decision that could change everything. And under all that, there was the oldest fear of all, the fear of needing someone. Cole arrived early. No entourage, no posture, none of that executive theater that demands the world part like the Red Sea. He stood near arrivals with the old bear in his arm and his phone in his pocket, not hiding behind anything. His wealth could have turned the whole thing into an event, but he chose to keep its simple presence. Even so, the contrast was impossible to miss. On one side, Cole with that calm power, the air of a man used to controlling the mood in any room. On the other, Rachel with the quiet dignity of someone who learned to survive without asking permission, but who, for the first time, had something big on the line. Lily spotted Cole first. Instantly, the airport noise seemed to fade for her. She let go of her mother's hand and ran, backpack bouncing, her face breaking into a clean smile. "You found us again," she said, wrapping her arms around his legs like her hug was a padlock. Cole crouched down to her level right away and answered softly, almost laughing through his nose. "This time I didn't have to look, I just showed up at the right time." Lily reached for the stuffed bear, checking it over like it was an old friend, and let out that satisfied sigh kids give when they believe in things the most dangerous way possible, with their whole hearts. Rachel caught up and stopped for a second, caught between gratitude and suspicion. She glanced around, half expecting cameras, important people, some kind of trick from life. "You didn't have to be here," she said. "It didn't come out harsh, it came out scared." Cole kept his voice steady. "I know. I wanted to be." Then came the heaviest pause of all, because this wasn't about the airport or the book anymore. It was about the kind of arrogance Rachel had seen before. Rich people helping, only to feel bigger. She looked him straight in the eye and asked, "No sugarcoating." "Why?" Cole didn't look away. He squeezed the old bear a little tighter and let the truth out as best he could. "Because I know what it's like to lose someone and keep pretending you're fine. And because what you wrote isn't a favor, it's talent." They walked together toward a quieter spot near a window where the gray sky and thin flakes of snow brushed the glass. Cole showed her the address and time on his phone, everything organized, no inflated promises, no illusion. "The editor will be there. I'm not going into the room." "It's just you and him." Rachel nodded slowly, breathing deep like someone bracing for impact and walking in anyway. Lily looked from her mom to Cole, and that small, serious look carried something adults forget. Pure trust. Cole leaned down again and whispered in Lily's ear like he was sharing a secret. "You're in charge of taking care of her today, okay?" Lily nodded solemnly, like she'd just been given official orders. When it was time to go, the quietest reversal happened. Rachel didn't thank him like someone receiving a handout. She thanked him as an equal. "Thank you for not turning this into a showcase," she said, her voice cracking just a little. Cole nodded and answered simple, "I'm not here to save you, Rachel. I just didn't want you to have to walk through this alone." And when the three of them started walking, Rachel with the suitcase, Lily glued to her side, and Cole only going as far as made sense, the airport stopped being a place of fear. It became the place where a real chance took shape. It wasn't a happy ending yet. It was just the beginning of a door opening, quietly but with real weight. Rachel stepped into the small meeting room with her printed manuscript in a plain folder, like someone entering a space she'd always been told wasn't for her. The editor, a man in his 50s, practical eyes, no fake smiles, asked her to sit and went straight to the point. "I've read it now, I want to understand you." Rachel gripped her pen, trying not to show how nervous she was, and answered the only way she knew how, without decoration, with humility and backbone. She talked about the diner, the double shifts, about Lily sometimes falling asleep in the back seat, and how that night at the airport became a story because it couldn't have become anything else. He flipped through the pages slowly, marking sections with sticky notes, and every stretch of silence felt like a test. At one point, He looked up and said something Rachel never expected to hear. "This isn't just cute, this is good." It wasn't a sweet compliment. It was a blunt acknowledgement from someone who respects craft. Rachel felt her face warm and almost didn't believe it. She was waiting for arrogance to show up in the next sentence, but his tone stayed level. He explained how the process worked, what the publisher needed, what would have to be reworked, and made it clear nobody was giving her anything. This was work. This was a shot, and for someone like her, that alone was a massive turning point. Meanwhile, outside the room, Cole sat with Lily on a bench near the window. No speeches, no promises, just presence. Lily set the stuffed bear on her lap like he was a guest of honor and asked, "Is my mum gonna be happy?" Cole breathed in and answered quietly, "I think so. But even if she's scared, she's still gonna do it." Lily accepted that as truth and rested her head on his shoulder for a second, tired of a world that was way too big. Cole caught their reflection in the glass and realized how useless all his power had been when he was alone, and how small it looked next to a simple moment like this. When the door finally opened, Rachel came out different, not euphoric, a kind of contained relief, like someone who just walked a long, dark hallway and saw a light ahead. She looked at Cole and said only, "He wants the full manuscript and he wants to really back it." Her voice wobbled on the "really," and she laughed, embarrassed. She still couldn't quite believe it. Cole nodded. Nothing more. "No, I told you so. No ego, just okay. Then let's do this right." Rachel took a deep breath, squeezed his hand, not like someone thanking a savior, but like someone recognizing a person who refused to turn her moment into a show, and called Lily over. As the three of them walked down the hallway, nobody looked like anyone's rescuer. They just looked like people who, for one rare moment, chose not to walk past each other. When Rachel walked out of that building with her chest tight and her eyes shining in a way she tried to hide, it wasn't because someone had saved her life. It was because, for the first time in a very long time, someone looked at what she did and treated it like real work, with respect, without arrogance, without turning her into a prop. And Cole, standing there with the old bear under his arm, understood something he didn't need to say out loud. His power had always been huge, but that night, it was only good for one thing that truly mattered: showing up, being a bridge, not a wall. Lily grabbed her mother's hand and started down the corridor like the airport was no longer a maze. Cole stayed a few steps behind, far enough not to intrude, close enough to make sure no one ran them over. And that's how the scene closed the way it should. Not with fireworks or perfect promises, but with three people who had stepped into the cold for different reasons, and somehow walked out of there with a little more ground under their feet. And if you found a lost child, what would you do? And what part of this story hit you hardest? The cookie, the bear, or Rachel's courage to say okay even while she was shaking? Tell us in the comments. If you love stories like this, human, full of wealth, humility, and real turning points without fake theater, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.